Are you ready? Stand by.
Welcome to the Three Gun Show, episode 80. I'm your host, Dave Hartman, coming at you from Cincinnati, Ohio. My guest this week is my 2016 WarSport Team Challenge teammate, Tabor Bright of FN America. This episode is brought to you by MGM Targets. Have you ever been in a match and thought, wow, I really need practice on those skinny knockdowns, or long-range practice sure would be easier if I had a couple steel targets with hit indicators? Well, you can get the same quality steel targets that you see in major matches at MGM Targets. My favorite target lately has been the standard shape auto poppers. Those little things are challenging for pistol, shotgun, or rifle, and because they automatically reset, you can run more drills and drills with positional work without bothering to break for reset. Step up your practice or outfit your range and use the code DHMGM10 to save 10% on your purchase. MGM Targets has been putting up some great prizes to give away to you, and you only have a couple days to enter the June giveaway for a 10-inch Sportsman's target. For details and to sign up yourself, go to 3gunshow.com/MGM. I was invited to shoot the 2016 WarSport Team Challenge, and I was placed with Tabor Bright of FN America, who I had met just a few days earlier at the 2A Heritage 3-Gun Junior Camp. The WarSport Team Challenge is a unique match because it requires every team to have at least one junior or one lady shooter. Damon Woodall invited Tabor Bright and I to shoot the match for fun, and with less than 24 hours to prepare for the match, we had a blast. Links from this show can be found at 3gunshow.com/episode 80, or you can just tap the album art on your smartphone and it will take you right there. Now, please join me in welcoming to the show, Tabor Bright. Tabor, welcome to the 3-Gun Show.
Thank you for having me.
Dude, I'm excited to have you here. We just met recently. You and I go back a long ways, which is about a week. We met at the 2A Heritage Junior 3-Gun Camp. You were an instructor there.
I was, yeah.
I was hanging out covering it for the 3-Gun Show, and it was love at first sight. I'm pretty much.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely.
And so we had a good time there. It was a really fun camp, and I'd like to talk about that a little bit too here. But the meat of it is that we got to really spend a lot of time together because we shot the WarSport Team Challenge together on a media pass. All right, so
I don't know that I would say we got to shoot it together. We got to ride the crazy train of 3-gun at the WarSport Challenge because, we sort of got thrown into that at the last second there, and borrowed gear and having never shot things that we've shot before, things like that. So, but it's a good time.
Well, and it's a good story too because it's stories like that you're going to be telling for years. It's not going to be the story of like, well, I showed up and all my gear was good and I shot the best match possible. Like, you'll forget about that. But the last minute, hey, why don't you guys shoot this match? That's what we're going to remember this as.
Oh yeah, and I've got several of those actually.
Nice. Well, and we're going to talk about those, but
okay.
Tabor, real quick, why don't you give the audience an idea of who you are off the range, who you are when you're not shooting 3-gun?
I am Tabor Bright from Northern Virginia. I've been living in Northern Virginia almost 10 years. I'm a single parent raising kids on my own. I'm a sales manager for FN America. I am my official title is Sales Manager Eastern Region. However, we don't really have a territory. We have clients. So I travel the entire country selling commercial products for FN America.
Nice. And FN America, for those who've been hiding in a cave, is it like the United States' largest manufacturer of firearms, or second largest, or one of the top three? Or
no, I wouldn't think that that's the case. We are the largest American supplier of small arms to the American military.
There we go.
So we handle, the M4, the M16, the 240, 240 Bravo, 249 SAW, 249 Para, Mark 46, Mark 48, Mark 19 grenade launcher, Scar 16, Scar 17, M2, M3, Gal 21, fixed wing and rotary wing mounting systems and firing systems. Just a little bit of stuff.
Yeah, well, and so for people that are, everyone's listening to this, they can't see us. You're not reading from a catalog. That was completely from memory.
Yeah, the downside. I shouldn't say the downside. The interesting piece of FN and their heritage is that a lot of people don't correlate is John Browning.
Right.
John Browning spent his last day on this earth in our plant in Liège, Belgium, and his office is still in the plant as it was the day that he died. Of course, it's been cleaned and dusted, but all of his drawings and his notes and everything all on the desk as they were the day he passed.
No way.
Yeah.
I had no idea.
Oh yeah.
See, I knew about the Browning connection just because I've seen it like in catalogs. You see like I don't know, is like a part of the Browning family or of companies or part of the FN family of companies, whatever the nomenclature is. But I had no clue that his office is still there in Belgium.
Yeah.
That's
I mean,
cool.
some of our greatest products were thoughts of John Browning's.
Wow.
Inspired by things that he had worked on, the 1919 and things of that, guns like that, historic guns.
So John Browning then is, I'm not real familiar with like the history of guns. Like I know from like when I came into it in like 2008 or whatever it was, but so I'm not familiar with like historical stuff. If someone brings me something and they're like, "Hey, you know what this is?" I'm like, "Nah, sorry, dude. I don't. Maybe I'll Wikipedia or whatever." So, John Browning is like, he's one of those people that had some sort of what people would call like divine inspiration or something, just like a real firearms genius or a mechanisms genius.
Absolutely. I mean, he is truly probably one of the greatest innovators in the firearms industry, bar none. The greats are John Browning, Sam Colt, the Henry Rifle Company, Sharps Rifle Company, Springfield. All of those, the designers that came out of all of that era. John Browning's one of the greatest, without question. Without John Browning, we wouldn't have the 1911. We wouldn't have, the BAR. We wouldn't have, some of the shotguns and all the other things that he worked on over the years.
Well, and a lot of guns are based on designs of his as well, right? So they take like a little bit of the 1911, a little bit of this, a little bit of that, or whatever, and then make whole new guns from it. So there's a lot of design influence in other firearms that you wouldn't necessarily say that's a John Browning design, but the influence is definitely there.
Absolutely. The way things grip, the way things function, gas systems, recoil systems, absolutely. Many guns made by other manufacturers have design inspirations from John Browning and everything that he did.
So Tabor, it sounds like you have like a little bit of an encyclopedic knowledge of this type of stuff. And chatting with you over the weekend here, you definitely seem like a firearms enthusiast, right? Where did this, love of firearms, you get in the firearms industry, where did that come from? Was this like a childhood thing or?
A little bit. My father was in the service, so he wasn't around when I was a kid. So he didn't bring me up around guns. And the first time I shot a gun, actually, is an interesting story. My parents were already divorced at that point, and we were living in a little town in Unionville, Pennsylvania. And we lived next to this older couple, and at face value, most of the time, the two of them were meaner than snakes. I mean, if you walked too close to their fence, the lady of the house was yelling at you, and if you walked on the grass and the Mr. Miller was out there, you'd get yelled at for being on the grass. And one day I was in the garage, and I'm certain that I was up to no good. I'm not really sure what I was doing, but it probably was some mischief because I got into a fair amount of mischief back in the day. Actually, I still get into a little bit of mischief.
Still do, don't you?
Yeah, a little bit. And he was in his garage, and I saw him over there, and I sort of, poked my head in and wanted to see what he was up to, and we got to talking a little bit, and he was actually a little bit receptive that day. I don't know if he was just in a good mood or, what the deal was, but we got to talking, and I think maybe I was messing with some water guns, or I'm not sure what. And he said, well, let's go down back and we'll shoot a real gun. I said, okay. So we go down back and we shoot Remington. I want to say it was a Remington 512 pump, if I remember correctly. And we went down there.
So 22 LR, is that right?
Yeah, so a 22 pump rifle. And we went down there and we shot a little bit and did a bunch of stuff. And that happened a few times after that first day. And then, as life unfolds and you don't have as much time to do things. And we lived there next to them for a couple of years. And he got on in age. He was older when we lived there, and health started failing and things. And before he passed, he told his son that he wanted me to have the rifle. So I got a rifle and probably about a gallon and a half worth of loose 22s from something, and I still have that rifle to this day. I think it's a Remington 512. It hasn't been out of my safe in many years, but it's one that's very near and dear to my heart because it's kind of a neat story.
Yeah, it is a great story. And so when he took you out shooting, was it just like plinking cans or?
Cans and log ends from firewood, and I think at one point he had some little. He owned a little I think he had a metal shop or something, and he made like little sheet metal tabs that hang on like
little swingers,
little pseudo swingers,
yeah.
like you can get from Birchwood Casey now. Well, he had these little metal tabs, and we shot those, and we did that a few times. It was fun, and at that point, I was hooked. I didn't realize how hooked I was, but I was hooked. I liked it. And then I sort of, I was probably, I don't think I was 10 yet at that point. Maybe 8, 9, somewhere in there. And then sort of drifted away, and guns weren't really part of my life at that point once we moved away and moved to a different part of town, and he passed, and then it all changed when I turned 16. So when I turned 16, got my driver's license, and I started driving tow trucks. And there used to be this gun shop that I would go past all the time in the tow truck to go into a particular record yard called Blue Sky Gun and Sport. And I would go in there, and it was one of these gun shops that had an atmosphere to it. It was very eclectic, it was clean, but it was kind of dark and sort of had an interesting, like a Western bar type of atmosphere to it.
Oh, no kidding.
And I would go in and just ask questions and stare at the guns, because the guns for me are like artwork. So if you could watch Picasso paint a painting or something to that nature and see the end result, it's the same thing for me when I see somebody, like Jesse James, and having gotten to know him over the years and see him work on guns, and it's like that. The older guns, we just don't make guns like that anymore. The guns that were hand built with the deep, rich bluing and a color case hardening and handcrafted wood grips and stocks. I mean, those are the things that really trip my trigger. Old K model Smith & Wessons and Pythons and King Cobras and Model 10 Smith & Wessons, old Lugers and vest pocket Browning, 32s and 22s and 25s, and you look at how the fit and the finish, and you look at things like that and you go, how did they build that then? That's what's fascinating to me, because you look at products today that some companies are putting out, and they don't hold a candle to what companies put out 50 years ago. And those things were hand polished and hand assembled. They didn't have nearly the technology in metals and machinery that they do now. And a lot of the stuff that comes off an assembly line now doesn't even compare to the things from back then.
Well, and there's a lot of I don't know, like a lot of like Me Too, especially like here, around three gunners, you see like a ton of Glocks all the time, right? And you see a bunch of 2011s, and all the 2011s end up looking the same after a while. But when you see something that someone took some time in like a design or some time in like fitment and everything, it's noticeable how different it is. it's noticeable. I mean, it like stands out as being unique and having that craftsmanship into it.
Absolutely. I mean, when FM first brought the Scar on the scene, it was so much different than anything else that was out there. From a training standpoint, when you look at, when you do failure drills with your AR-15, compared to a failure drill on a Scar, it's a fair amount different because the Scar has a reciprocating charging handle, and the handle can be switched from the left to the right side. So, if you're in a one-handed, operation because, you've got an arm down or whatever the case may be, you can't get your other hand to the other side of the gun or something like that. There's many different ways to manipulate the rifle versus with an AR-15 based rifle. In some cases you're limited to how you can do failure drills and things like that. So innovative products and seeing people that are shooting something different. I don't know if you noticed this. We had a young lady in camp this week, and she also shot the WarSport match here. She was shooting I want to say it was a European American Armory CZ sort of base type
like
of rifle.
CZ. Oh, the rifle?
No, the pistol.
Oh, pistol. Okay, I'm sorry. I thought you were going to say rifle. But it was like a CZ SP01 or something like that.
Yeah,
it's like a USPSA type pistol.
Yep, and it worked really well. I mean, she had no issues.
Mm-hmm.
So seeing people bring something, I'm more drawn to stuff like that because, they're willing to take the risk and use something a little different.
Yeah.
I mean, let's face it, we all are shooting something similar because in the sport of three-gun, you kind of want to shoot something similar because, God forbid, something happens when you're on the range and you need parts, you need magazines. That's the great thing about this three-gun community is somebody's always going to be standing there with their hand out, here, take this, use this, do that, That's why there's a lot of commonality. And the other piece of that is the basic guns that most people are using in three-gun, whether it be the Benelli or the Glock or the STI-based guns, it's good product. It's good, it's durable, it lasts. There's a multitude of things you can do to them, whether you're the entry-level basic shooter all the way up through the accomplished shooter like Jerry Miklek.
Yeah.
I mean, today, this whole weekend, he shot a polymer frame M&P pistol.
Yeah, M&P pistol. It's probably like Smith & Wesson M&P 15.
Yeah, an M&P 15.
And then a Mossberg 930 shotgun.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Me and Jerry shot the same shotgun.
Yeah, it ran good all weekend.
Yeah, I didn't have a malfunction this weekend.
So, yeah, it all falls back to that little gun shop. And how it fell into, the guy got tired of looking at me. And he said, why don't you start coming around on the weekends and, you can, break cardboard boxes down and take the trash out. And I would do all that stuff in a hurry and get it done right and cleaned up so that I didn't have to go back over my steps because I wanted valuable time behind the gun counter just watching and listening and learning. And that's kind of where it went. And then one thing led to another. I ended up at a big gun shop in Chadds, Pennsylvania, Target Master, working there and being sort of one of the assistant managers and ROing because it's got 15 indoor lanes. And then I was part owner of a little tiny gun shop out in Downingtown, PA, and did that part-time for many years. I went from Target Master to a wholesaler, selling guns over the phone to gun shops all over the Eastern Seaboard. And did that for, I think, almost 12 years. I went from the distributor to Smith & Wesson, and then I went from Smith & Wesson to FN. And one of the greatest moments of my career is when I got all my creds and stuff at Smith & Wesson. And Smith & Wesson is this really eclectic kind of, just what you would picture in old-time manufacturing, where there's all these nooks and crannies and ramps and in old buildings, and you sort of go through these double doors and down this little ramp out onto the factory floor, and there's a large Smith & Wesson logo sort of at this intersection in the building. And I called my friend that owns the gun shop in Chadds Ford, and I said, you're never going to believe where I am. He's like, where? I said, I'm standing in the middle of it. I've got my Smith & Wesson badge, and I can go anywhere I want. That was a big moment for me. And then there's been so many big moments at this point based on things that I've gotten to do. Shoot matches with, Chris Fleming and Hunter Cahill and, some of the amazing people, the juniors I've got to shoot with. All of that has just been – it's been a ride, I'll tell you.
Yeah. Yeah, this weekend we shot with the Mitchell X, Kay and Jerry, and Lena. And
the Super Squad.
Yeah, Tommy Thacker and Greg Jordan and the Yackley Five. Yeah, we got pretty lucky.
We did get very lucky, and that's always been an interesting thing for me because Tommy and I have been the best of friends for over 20 years now.
Wow.
He was actually one of my customers when I was at the distributor. He was one of the managers at a little gun shop in Northern Virginia, Loudon Guns.
Yeah,
that's where he and I met. And the very first 3-gun match I shot, Tommy and I were at FN together. He was in product development, and I was the sales guy that I am now. And I got volunteered to drive the team rig across the country to the Superstition Mountain in Arizona. So he and I are on the phone one day talking about, making sure everything's ready. And he said, oh, yeah, you just might as well pack your gear because you're going to shoot. What? Okay, sure. I mean, I'd shot a little bit. I mean, I'd always shot. I mean, I was a relatively good shooter for the most part. But I'd never shot a 3-gun match. I'd shot some pistol. I just really started shooting some pistol matches. And, again, this was right when 3-Gun Nation was taking off. Everybody was getting into it pretty heavy. And I'm on the Super Squad, with the likes of the Micklicks and Craig Outson and Travis Gibson and I think Keith Garcia and Adam Popowell and just all of these unbelievable shooters. And then there's Tabor, who's shooting all the wrong gear, has really no real idea what I'm doing, none. But I will tell you that as bad as I did not DQ. I won an award for
Most Improved.
No. I got an award for not last, dead last, I forget how it was worded. And essentially what it was is they gave me free entry into the event for the next year.
Oh, no kidding.
So there's one way to look at it. I finished not so good as last, but I finished. And I finished amongst, the people at that match. You're shooting with some of the greatest shooters in the world.
Mm-hmm.
And they gave me the opportunity to go back and do it again.
So you had a good time. So you were like voluntold to go drive this across country and also bring your gear because you're shooting. And so you must have enjoyed it because you've come back and you shoot 3-gun still. So.
Well, the 3-gun community is interesting. It's I've never been involved in a sport that can at one point can be so competitive, and at the blink of an eye, that person that you're shooting against is giving you the shirt off your back so that you could potentially beat them.
Yeah, for sure.
That is the truth with this, and really our whole the whole firearms industry is like that. It's a small community. When we go out and we do the trade show circuit, which starts like the 2nd of January and goes through about the middle of February into the beginning of March. If you're doing these trade shows and you need help setting up booths, or you need tape, or you're in trouble, or whatever the case is, we all, even if you're competitors, we all really sort of rely on each other to get through this part of the year. So it's really, the community itself is really pretty nice, because nowhere else in any kind of industry do you have things like that. And 3-gun is no different. One of the greatest matches there is MGM Ironman. They encourage coaching. Mm-hmm. They encourage help. If you're in the middle of shooting a stage and your gun goes down, I can guarantee you within the blink of an eye, somebody is going to be standing next to you with a gun, whether it's one of your guns, one of their guns, doesn't matter. They're going to be next to you with gun and ammo so that you can finish your stage.
Oh yeah. Well, and we we just shot the WarSport Team Challenge, and we saw some of that this weekend too, where there's like a severe race for first place going on in our squad, and like Tommy and Tim took a second place, right? Tommy and Tim Yackling. And Tommy, sees someone having a malfunction on the range. He grabs his rifle and his magazine, and he's running out there with it. Like, here, take this. Just go with this. Don't clear the malfunction. And that's the it's cool. Like, it is amazing how nice everyone is and how encouraging and helpful and like almost to a fault. It's like I needed a Phillips screwdriver the other day for my tech locks. I'm like, oh crud, this is getting a little loose. Anybody have a Phillips screwdriver? 7 people are like, here you go. And so now it's like, well, now whose do I take?
Right. and it's, I don't, whenever I run into people that have questions about 3-gun or, even some of the 2-gun events, I tell them, I said, look up, in your hometown, look for some of your local club matches. Just show up and introduce yourself. Mm-hmm. Tell them you have interest. They're going to walk you through it.
Oh,
if you have the desire to shoot and you can do it safely, they're going to help you do that. If they got to loan you their gear and their ammo and all of that stuff, I've never heard of a club match or any person ever showing up at something and them being turned away because they don't know. That's the last thing we want to do. Just because of our society today and politics and it kind of being a faux pas in some people's eyes about bringing your kids up shooting and hunting and fishing and things of that, it's not being passed down generationally like it was, when you and I were 8, 10, or even the generation before that. I mean, it wasn't uncommon for a 12-year-old to have his own trap line or to be on the shooting team with the local, middle school or high school. We don't have that now. So the true growth measurement of this entire industry is word of mouth and being open hand is what Tommy and I like to call it. Open hand. So if somebody comes to you and they need something, they want something, they want to get into it. That's why we're here. That's why we're here at WarSport today. It's why Timney has gone to the great expense to have this trailer running all over the country to endorse the sport and bring more people into it, whether it be for 3-gun or for hunting and fishing or trap and skeet or whatever it is. That's why a lot of these companies are putting it out there like that, because society as a whole doesn't allow them to advertise conventionally like every other business out there. So we've had to come up with ways to advertise our business and endorse our sport, and this is what we're doing.
Yeah, and that's one of the great things about what I do is the podcast is there's no sort of FCC, no gatekeepers. You can put the file out there. I pay for the hosting and everything, and then it's free for people to consume without being diluted like it would be if it were in some sort of mainstream media or something like that. But the great thing about 3-gun is it like you said, the people they bring you in. So was that it for you? Just like, I really enjoy these people and I want to hang out with them.
Yeah,
again, so
and I tell people this all the time, and some of them look at me kind of strangely, and they say, I've had people tell me that this next comment I'm going to make to you is, they say that I make this comment because I work for a factory, and my factory takes care of everything. Contrary to what people believe, that is not the case. Economies are interesting right now for all business, whether you're in the firearms business or something else. Businesses have to be really close with their dollars. So I am on this entire week, I'm on vacation and, using mileage and points and stuff so that I can be here and take care of the kids and do the camps. I come and I shoot these events, and I could care less about the prize table. Would I like to shoot well and would I like to finish well? Absolutely. But that's really second to everything else. Because I look at the time, you just look at our squad, just our squad in general that we shot on. I've got a new friend in you. I got to spend the weekend shooting with Jerry Micklick.
Yeah.
And Kay Micklick and Lena Micklick. they're like the first family of shooting sports in many ways. And you look at the getting to pass on the abilities that I have and the knowledge I have to the juniors that we get to shoot with and the juniors I get to spend time with at camp. That's all. That's it for me. I mean, that's
So let's talk about the 2A Heritage Camp for a minute here. So it's an East Coast thing. It's a spinoff of the MGM Junior Camps, right?
absolutely
Run by Becky Ackley, and then you're on the board, and then David
Powers on
the board. Yep. And so I was invited to come and hang out and just observe and take pictures and video and stuff like that for the podcast. And I was absolutely blown away by the level of dedication by the juniors, the level of training they actually received. It wasn't so basic. It was like some advanced concepts, and the kids were getting it. And then there was also like a very summer campy feel to it, where in the middle of the day we took a break because it was too hot. So we had like 2 hours where we just told the kids, like, okay, go cool down, which they didn't listen to. They got on the golf carts and cruised around the Clinton House plantation, and some of them went in the pool and everything. It was like a really, really cool experience for the kids to, and I say kids, but was there like 11 to 18, I think, is the age range that I saw there?
Yeah. You need to allow your kids to be kids.
Yeah, for sure.
And we know they're going to work hard. We know that the parents are dedicated because that's proof positive because shooting is not an inexpensive hobby.
Mm.
I mean, if you're really going to shoot and you're going to make a real effort at it, you're going to spend similar money to what you would spend if you were a weekend drag racer or a motocrosser or something like that. Because, if you want to be competitive and you're going to need to shoot the right gear. Mm-hmm. So just at a minimum, you're probably between on the low side of $4,000 to a high side of $8,000 to $9,000 just for the 3 guns you need.
Mm-hmm.
That's not counting the optics and all of the different trinkets and widgets and left-handed sky hooks that companies are bringing out to reinvent the wheel in 3-gun. As far as you look at Noveski and their K5 barricade, stop, and some of the muzzle brakes that are out there.
Well, then there's a match saver, and you need anti-roll pins for your AR-15, and you need a
Timney trigger, and
you need a switch view for your optic, and you need this, and you need this, and you need this,
and you keep. You can get by on a lot of these matches with some basics.
Mm-hmm.
However, if you want to be the competitiveness, meaning the time, from first place to say 20th place, is in some matches is hundredths of a second, and that's the difference of having a switch view or not, having your magazines coupled together or not, having the right kind of pouches and things on your Safariland belt so that you can make quick mag changes and have all of that stuff available. That's the difference. And having been at these camps for 3 or 4 years now and watching the dedication that these parents are putting forth, I mean, we had, I think, 2 or 3 or 4, I think we had 3 parents at camp this week, all of whom are shooters in their own right,
mm-hmm.
and they opted not to shoot this season so that their kids could get to do these That's dedication.
Well, I was talking to one parent who's like, well, my son has nicer gear than I do. And that is like super dedication, and it reminds me of like, the I don't know, like competitive volleyball teams or something like that, where they're like a traveling team where they go around and do, big match. Do they call them matches? Volleyball match, whatever. Volleyball tournaments, in different areas. And so they've got like their travel expenses, their gear expenses, plus thousands of dollars to be involved in that. It reminds me of that. Like it's not a cheap thing. Like just doing, flag football when I was little was like $50 for the season, and we got to borrow jerseys.
if let's just say, well, look at a local club match.
Mm-hmm.
You're probably looking at, between $20 and $40 in match fees. But the big picture is you look at, all right, in the match, you're going to spend probably a couple $100 on ammo just to shoot that little club match of 6 or 7 stages that you'll shoot in one day. And then you look at the prep before the match, during the match, after the match, and all the costs associated with that. So, in theory, if you're a parent and you're making sure your kids have the best stuff, and you're making sure they're practicing and doing all their due diligence and keeping their skills up to par, local club match could get a little bit expensive, if you're really trying to be competitive, because, I'll be the first one to tell you, I don't practice because I don't have the time. And that was proof positive this week. Cause,
yeah, we need to talk about that.
This week was a train wreck. Let me back up. In many people's eyes that were watching me, they probably thought it was an absolute train wreck. And I went right along with that because, for me, this is all about the enjoyment of shooting and the meeting new people and the networking and making people laugh and feel relaxed. I could care less about the prize table. I would like to shoot well. I would like to not leave bleeding, and I would like to not get DQ'd.
Right.
And I've done all of those things at different matches over the years.
Well, then mission accomplished this weekend because we shot a pretty successful match. We had a good time. Now they didn't let us put our scores in practice score because they didn't want us messing with the table since we're 2 adult males shooting a match that the format is a adult male and a junior or an adult male and a female, right? And the idea of the match is to get new people into the sport and expand our sport as a whole, which is a really cool concept, and it's fun to do that in like a team match sort of environment. So when we got here, we had planned to go shoot a different match, but Damon Woodall said, "No, you guys are shooting this match, and you're not going to shoot it for score, but you're going to cover it for the 3-gun show," which both of us were like, "All right, let's do it." So immediately we tried to figure out who was going to be the either junior or the female.
And I first of all, I'll tell you this: I said that I would be the female of the group because that was my defense mechanism of, as I turn around to walk away from that conversation with Damon and yourself and Tommy, I was quietly going, "Oh my God." So, my defense mechanism, of course, is, okay, let's make people laugh.
Mm-hmm.
We're all laughing together, laughing at me, whatever the case is. I'm fine with that. But I was panicked.
Really?
I have not shot competitively in any way, shape, or form in probably over a year.
Oh, no kidding.
You
should have told me this beforehand.
No, and I've not practiced. Little bit of stuff here and there at, when I'm out demoing FM product or working at junior camp or, dealer demos when I'm out and about, doing my full-time job. But no Tabor time on the range,
right.
No practice, no nothing. So I turned around and I start going through the checklist in my head. So, all right, I know what gear I have with me. I know what gear I don't have with me. And I'm thinking, okay, well, I packed guns that the kids would enjoy shooting at camp. Now, I could have used all of those this weekend and shot an okay match. Probably would have been a whole lot funnier than it was based on, a borrowed shotgun and some borrowed gear, because none of my stuff is cutting edge, as they like to say, You
do have one piece that's cutting edge that I'd like to talk about in a second here,
okay.
But we'll get into that. But first, I got to say that we're at – okay, so right now, to set the stage for people that are listening, we are still on the Woody's range, right? Woody's Hunt and Rifle Club range.
That's correct.
And we're sitting in my trailer. My dog's napping over on the side here, and we're right next to the Timney trailer, and we're also next to the Gosnell trailer, Luke and Ashley Gosnell, and I can hear Ashley laughing out there. So Little shout out to Luke and Ashley because I know they'll be listening to this.
Little shout out to Timney for John at Timney has made a large investment in equipment and in Tommy to endorse our sport, and they were generous enough to put me up this weekend. Stayed in the trailer, even managed to fall out of the top bunk in the middle of the night.
And not kill Hunter.
Yeah, I mean, nowhere else, no other industry, no other sport can you find this kind of atmosphere.
Yeah, and this was one of the it's hard to say this is one of the most fun weekends I've had because they just keep getting better and better and better. But
you bring up something interesting. I think back when, I've had people ask me of these defining moments in my career.
Mm-hmm.
And just when I think I've had the defining moment, something else happens.
Yeah.
Whether it's a ride in a Huey shooting one of our guns, or it's a hunt with HAVA, which is another group that I work with, Honored American Veterans of Field.
Yeah.
And getting a double amputee out in the woods to harvest an elk. All of these moments, just when I think that I've seen it and done it, something else happens. Where you look at Dakota Overland,
mm-hmm.
and the look on her face when you instruct her on something and she gets it right, and it works for her, and she makes those hits and just does really well, and you can see that glow. You see it in Andrew Yackley all the time.
Oh yeah.
I've been working with Andrew Yackley for.
Dude, he's like your best pal.
Yeah, he and I are buds. He first 3-gun match the Yackleys had shot was the FN match in my hometown in Virginia, and they showed up and they didn't really have anything for Andrew to do, and he was just sort of playing in the dirt and bored and wanting stuff to do, and I pulled up on the Razor with the ATV thing, and I just introduced myself and I said, "What are you doing, Andrew?" He said, "Well, I'm about he's picking up rocks and shell casings," and I said, "Come on, why don't you just hang with me for the day?" And we had a little barricade wall set up, and I put him on a Scar 17, which is a 308 rifle.
Right.
He was 6 or 7 at the time, 75 pounds soaking wet at best. And really, he said he wanted to shoot, and so we went over the nomenclature of the rifle, so he understood the safeties and how everything operated. He got behind the gun on the barricade wall. I rested a hand on his shoulder so that, the thing wouldn't shove him over, and I just started coaching him. And within 3 or 4 rounds, he was on a 10-inch piece of steel at 468 yards.
Wow.
And went 1 for 1 for 20 rounds.
No kidding.
Yeah, at 6 years old.
That's crazy.
And the thing that was interesting to me is, you kids, especially young boys at that age, when you're teaching them about t-ball and soccer, and they're more interested in what the butterfly is doing than,
right.
Oh, hey, there's a ball coming towards me. Maybe I should do something about that. Andrew Yackley, and really all of the Yackley boys, but Andrew, just when you think, are you getting through to him? You get him behind the gun on a target, and you can see the light come on, and he just starts wearing the target out. I mean, he is just probably one of my all-time favorite students because he's so patient. He listens, he gets it, and when you start to second-guess yourself as an instructor, and then you put him up on a rooftop, 10 feet, 15 feet up in the air, shooting a target at 400-plus yards, and he just wears it out.
Wow. And just everything that you've taught him, actually comes together. That's a good feeling for an instructor.
And then, with the age of social media and all the kids are buried in their Instagram and their Pinterest and their Facebook and Twitter and all this stuff. Now, I've worked with, some of the kids in camp from all over the country. Now I get to follow them. So not only am I really proud of my own children, in all of the things that they're doing, I now get to see all of these other kids that I've worked with over the years, boys and girls, and it's like being a proud parent all the time.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we had some of our kids go to Europe on the American shotgun team, We had I think 3 or 4 the last go around. And then you look at Tim Yackley. He's been one of my students. He's been in the camps that I've worked at for 4 years now. He won the one of the regionals. He's in the shoot-off for the Three Gun Nation Pro Series. He's 17.
Yeah.
And he's shooting against some of the best shooters in the world. The Tommy Thackers, the Daniel Horners, the Jerry Miklicks, the Mike Voigts, Barry Duke. You look at all these guys, and they got a 17-year-old kid knocking on their door. And guess what? Whenever I see those guys, they're over there, they're talking. They're talking about, oh my, did you see Tim Yackley load that shotgun? Makes it look effortless.
Oh, yeah. He's fast.
That's the stuff that really, that's when I come to these matches, that's why I do it, because I want to see that. I want to help with that, because I am a far better teacher than I am a shooter.
Well, so, okay, let's talk about the shooting. So once we realized that we were going to shoot the match, we were like, okay, first thing first, we got to go zero rifle, because you had a brand new FN. Help me out what they're calling it.
All right, so I had a brand new, had not been fired since it was in my possession, FN-15 competition.
Right, which, by the way, is gorgeous rifle. Blue receiver set, anodized FN blue.
Yeah, it's
nice Timney trigger.
It's billet upper and lower receiver. It's got our 18-inch hammer forged hard chrome barrel with rifle length gas. Surefire Pro Comp, Timney trigger. I've put a loopholed Mark 6, 1-6 on it with this, I think it's a CRW reticle. None of which I had used because the scope was new. Still have a lot of learning to do on how to properly use the reticle, because the reticle will do many things if you set the gun up to do that.
Sure.
It'll do all your ranging for you. It hadn't been shot much before we got here. I'd planned on shooting it at camp. We just didn't get to it.
Right, because there was so much stuff we were doing.
And then the other piece was the shotgun. A pistol I knew I was good because, I had, if I had to shoot an open gun, I had my JJ gun with me. I had my 5-inch FNS with me that Dave Savigny, our team captain, had done some things to for me. He'd stippled it and put some good sights on it. But the only shotgun I had was I call it my disco pump gun. So we'll skip back to the beginning for just a second. When I first started shooting 3-gun, I was dead set on being a heavy metal shooter.
All right.
Tommy said, you don't want to do that. That's not a good idea.
Why? So why is that? What was his reasoning?
Well, because heavy metal is a whole different ballgame.
Yeah.
You're shooting a 7.62 by 51 rifle, which is .308. You're shooting 45 ACP. Depending on the match and what set of rules you're using, you're at least shooting a .40 or bigger. Some cases, they'll let you shoot a 40. Most cases, you got to shoot a 45.
Right.
And in many cases, you have to shoot a pump gun.
Right.
I don't mind any of that. If I'm going to shoot, I want to make a lot of noise. I want my gun to hit those targets with authority. So I shoot a Scar 17. And my current Scar 17 that goes just about everywhere with me is 30,000+ rounds now, and
Wow.
It has never failed. We just finally put a trigger in it and did a couple things to it because it's not as pretty as it needs to be for, being put out on display at trade shows. So I bring it to all of these kind of things. Even if I'm not shooting it, I have it with me so that if somebody wants to shoot it, they can. So now comes to the reality, okay? Do I shoot the disco pump gun, which is an old FN TPS pump gun that I found I'd done some modifications. I found an old speed feed stock kit for it. I sent it out, had it dipped in carbon fiber, and then painted bright blue. It's a disco pump gun.
Sweet.
And I can run that gun really pretty fast. I'm pretty good with that gun. However, everybody's loading 2s now, and I'm looking at all of this. Tommy's
Everybody's
like,
quad loading, man.
quad loading. So Tommy says, well, you can just shoot, one of my Browning A5s. Great. And then you think about it. Well, I've heard all these great things about the new Browning A5, but I've never actually shot it.
Right.
So where it functions similar to the FNSLP and the Benelli M2 and it's some of its nomenclature. Everything's kind of in the same area, so it's not like I
Still
can't.
an automatic shotgun, right?
Right, it's still an automatic shotgun. The basics are there. It's got a safety. It's got a trigger. Once you load it and chamber it and point it in a safe direction at a target, take safety off, it'll go bang.
Right.
But still, everything's a little bit different.
Sure.
They react different. They sight different. The Browning has a really neat auto load feature that I had no experience with. Moving forward, I still load off of my belt because I have not switched to load 2s or load quads. Never even had that gear on me. I've never put it on my chest, never put it on my belt prior to this event.
Right.
So the first stage, thankfully my partner Dave, who I happen to be talking to on this podcast, volunteered to shoot a large portion of the shotgun stuff because clearly you were much more prepared and practiced for shotgun than I was. So we get up to this stage up here where there was a bus, an array of targets, and all this stuff, and I had to shoot a lot of shotgun. Lena Micklick, I believe her to be the top female 3-gunner in the world currently.
Makes sense.
She should. I mean, if she's not, she's very close.
I think she has like 4 3-gun nation titles. So is it 4 or 5? I don't remember. But any year that they've run a ladies 3-gun nation pro match, she's won. So I think your assessment's pretty correct there.
So she hears that I've never done this before, and she offers kindly. Now understand, we go back to what this community's like. She's here to win.
Right. And she's got her own match to think about.
Right, and she's got her own match to think about. So both she and Becky Yackley said, well, let us show you real quick. And then Becky walked away to walk the stage, so she knew what she was doing. And Lena said, you want to go over here and practice real quick. I said, thank you, but I think I'm going to go at this blind. Because in my mind, because, again, I don't care about the prize table. I'm here for the camaraderie.
Well, we weren't even on the prize table.
Right.
So.
I'm here to make friends and help people laugh and be a good squad mate and all of those things. If I'm going to burn it down and turn it into a train wreck, it's going to be epic. So, we get to the stage. Becomes my time. Tommy helps me preload this shotgun. I step into the box. The buzzer goes off. And when that buzzer went off, that was the first time I had loaded 2s. That was the first time I had shot that Browning A5 shotgun. And you know what? It wasn't pretty, but it worked. I got it done. People were right there. People that I'd never shot with before were cheering me on.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
You look at,
that's a cool thing about a team match where they encourage coaching,
Oh, gosh. I mean, that is just so much fun, When we were on one of our rifle stages, is it Matt Martini? Is that his name? Matt Martini's calling shots.
Yep.
I don't know him from Adam.
No.
I don't know that he and I have ever actually met or been formally introduced.
Yeah. Nice dude, though.
Great,
but yeah,
great
totally
people.
helping us out. And,
oh, yeah.
Your rifle that you just sighted in the previous day, we're ringing shots out to 300 yards with it. So.
Yeah, I mean, we get it all sighted in and figure out how to use the reticle, and it worked. The pistol and the rifle really worked pretty well for me this weekend.
So the pistol functioned every time, but Tabor, we got to work on your accuracy, man, because we were down a lot of pistol shots. So this scoring is like IDPA style, where they do like a down one,
which
down
is not
two.
something that I am used to.
Me neither. It's like usually 2 anywhere, but
yeah. So yeah, you're right. If they're going to continue to do things like, that IDPA style scoring, I do need to work on my accuracy, because if you just hose a target, like I like to do, which brings up a great story. First time I shot a match with Tommy. In this game, sometimes you need to get off the gas and make the hits count because of the scoring. Sometimes the scoring is more important than the time, and sometimes the time is more important than the scoring. So I got on the gas on my pistol when I shouldn't have. I should have slowed down, controlled my breathing, just like we teach, and made my hits count. But again, You look at the intimidation factor and the people that are watching you. And I tried really hard all weekend, to block that stuff out of my head. Because you've got, all the Micklicks. You've got Greg Jordan. You've got, Matt Martini. You've got just Tommy and Hunter Cahill. Hunter Cahill has no hands, and he can shoot circles around me, and I have both my hands. We've got, Dakota Overland, 13 years old. She's been shooting, a year and a half.
Yeah.
Hunter Cahill's only been shooting 2 years.
Yeah.
And he's a force to be reckoned with.
He really is. Yeah, for sure.
And here we are, and I'm like, I've got brand new gear, and all. I'm like, this is just gonna be a train wreck. And that part of it was
a little bit of a train wreck, but we had a good time.
Yeah, and for me, that's the deal.
I gotta tell you though, we I think it was like midway into stage 2. Chad Francis comes up to us and he's like, "Hey, I think that Andrew and I are going to give you guys a run for your money." So we put some prizes on the line with the Yackley younger, Andrew Yackley, and the Francis older, Chad Francis, and
so yeah,
it was a little bit of a friendly bet, but it turns out that we actually beat them by like 10 seconds over the entire match, total time. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I really thought they were going to smoke us, but we ended up with I think it was no, it was 7 seconds. It was God, it was 1,036 to 1,042 or something like that. So we beat an 11-year-old by 7 seconds.
Listen, think about that. Two grown men that really should be on top of their game in whatever this sport is beat an 11-year-old.
Barely, yeah. Kid's a good shooter, man.
He really is.
And he was on this week, too, especially with rifle. He was making his shots. By the way, his pistol skills are ridiculous.
Yeah. He, Tim and Sean are very good in their own right.
Yeah, for sure.
And I have been saying this since the beginning. Andrew is the sleeping giant.
You think so?
Absolutely.
Oh, man.
Andrew is going to be a fiend. If he stays in it, and stays as dedicated as he is now, in 5 years, he is gonna, he's the Jerry Micklick of the next century.
You think so?
Absolutely.
Oh man. He has that sweet mohawk.
Oh, he and Chad always do something unique for WarSport. This is the second or third year that Chad has taken Andrew under his wing and be his partner.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and they did fantastic too. They had a really good match, and one of the funnier things that I've ever heard in my entire life. I was sitting around having beers after, I think it was day 1 of the 3 Nation Eastern Regional last weekend, and we're sitting there and we were talking about different shotguns and how the shotgun episode that I had of the 3-gun show was the worst thing that ever happened on the in the history. And you were there actually at SHOT Show when we were doing that in the booth with the.
Oh yeah.
It came down to the finals with FN and
Benelli,
yes. So the FN SLP and the Benelli M2, and I've taken so much trash for that. It's great, but I love hearing it back from the listeners. But your buddy Chris, we're sitting around and just out of nowhere, he's like, "You know what I want to get?" He's like, "I want to get a Stoeger 20 gauge," and we're all sitting there "Why would you want a Stoeger 20 gauge?" And he says, "Because Andrew Yackley rocks that thing."
That he does. That he does. Mark Roth at X-Rail took a 20 gauge Stoeger and did all of the stuff that everybody does to their 12 gauges to the 20 gauge. And Andrew runs that thing like nobody's business.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and that's really exciting. Seeing little Andrew's face light up when he does well.
Oh
and,
man.
And
we were having fun with the bet and teasing him all weekend of and he was
Gives it right back.
Oh my God, he gives it right back. Yeah, it was brutal. Sometimes we'd walk off a stage and like if the something didn't come right, he's standing right there with that big grin on his face.
Oh yeah, he's something else.
So Tabor, are you going to come back for the WarSport Team Challenge next year?
Absolutely.
Bring yourself a junior, bring yourself a female or something like that.
So if there are any lady shooters out there that would like to shoot with a factory guy from FN, you can contact Dave from the 3-Gun Show, and I'd love to have a partner.
That's not exactly where I was going with that, but but yeah. So this is a fun match, and I've definitely got to find a junior or female and come back and do it for real next year.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm really digging the team format, and this is a really good time. But I gotta say, man, I really enjoyed having you as a teammate this week.
It was fun.
Yeah,
I got a new friend.
Yeah, absolutely. We met just a couple days ago at the junior camp, and the romance started there. We were on a on a team here at the WarSport Team Challenge, and look forward to seeing you at more matches and stuff like that in the future. And Tabor, couple questions I have that I ask all my guests.
Okay.
Just a sort of a way to wrap up the show. Can you tell me about your most spectacular disqualification?
I can.
And then follow up to this is we're going to ask what we can learn from that.
It was at Ironman. I had worked really hard. This was 2 or 3 years ago. I had worked really hard. I'd practiced a lot, worked really hard on my diet and conditioning and losing weight, doing lots of endurance training because Ironman is just that. It is Ironman. There's nothing else like it. The Gibson family puts on one incredible match. So I'd worked really hard to get to that point. And we go out there, and on the last day and the last stage, your start position was you had your rifle, you were seated in a chair, and you had your rifle, and you stood up and you opened a door, and a fast attack target come up a slide at you. You engaged a fast attack target, and once you went through the doorway and you moved left, you had some paper targets that you had to hit, and then you had a rifle spinner, and then there was a dueling tree. And in my mind, I thought I was going to shoot because I'm pretty confident with my Scar 17. More confident in the thinking that I can do it than in my actual ability to do it. I thought I was going to shoot this dueling tree on the move. Dumb. Dumb.
A dueling tree on the move.
So, had I paid attention to the walkthrough, as everybody shooting this game should, I did not hear the RO say that you had to engage the dueling tree from the barricade that I walked right past. So, Dave Neff, he's been Ironman several years in a row, police officer from Idaho, really good, again, one of my dearest friends in this industry. He was coaching me because Ironman is all about that. And as he started to yell back up, I started to back up. And the one mistake that I made was I didn't safety my rifle. Which, whenever I make a corrective move, if my gun has a safety, I am turning it on. Even if it costs me a little bit of time, I'm going to turn my safety on. As I was backing up, and, of course, guns down range because I'm trying to shoot down range. But as I'm backing up, my right leg catches the brace support of the barricade, and I fall backwards. And just out of instinct, I gripped the rifle so it wouldn't get away from me. And I hit the trigger and AD down range. It's safe direction, still an uncontrolled accidental discharge.
Right.
It was on the range, went down range. Nobody was hurt except my pride. And Andy Horner was running me. And Andy looked at me. I knew it was bad. I said, "What do we do?" He said, "Boy, get up, clear that rifle, let's go." Because Andy knew one thing. Andy knew I could care less about the prize table or any of that. Andy knew I just wanted to finish Ironman. It was a personal thing. Because I'm not in the best physical condition. There's no excuses. It's nobody's fault but my own. But Andy Horner knew I wanted to finish that match. And he allowed me to finish. And when I was done, I walked to him. I said, what are we doing? He said, yeah, it's bad, dude. He said, you're going to be DQ'd. I was mortified. Absolutely mortified, because here I look at, I'm wearing a jersey with FN on it, and FN had, supported me to go out there. They had paid my way. There was all of this time invested with Tommy and training and all of these things. And I'm absolutely mortified. And what came out of that was the people around me felt worse about it than I did, because they just want to see you succeed.
Oh, yeah.
And what that experience taught me was, at the end of the day, it's still a game. Nobody was hurt.
Yep.
I licked my pride. I'd cleaned my pride up a little bit, and now I use that as a teaching piece when I'm in my classes. Because when you're shooting 3-gun and you're shooting on the move, and you're using zip lines and slides and crawling under things and Lewis tunnels and, running with your gun on the move, accidents are going to happen. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. When it comes to a DQ, it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when.
So then the idea there is to control those variables that you can control, keep it safe direction.
Absolutely.
Safe on when you're moving as much as possible.
Yep. All of the basics that all of us teach all of the time. Muzzle in the right direction at all times. Always know your target. Your trigger finger is your most important safety. Always.
Mm-hmm.
Never have your finger on the trigger until you're ready to engage a target. And always know where your target is and what's beyond it. Again, with practice comes repetition, comes all of the thought processes. You don't practice enough, accidents like that happen.
Yep.
That's my most epic.
So, okay, so we got the DQ question and the lesson out of there. Where do you see the sport of 3-gun headed?
I think that if things like the 2A Heritage Camp continue, matches like WarSport and Ironman, all of those things continue, it's got nowhere to go but up. You look at the likes of new people coming into the industry and building guns for the sport, like Jesse James, known for building motorcycles and hot rods. Now he's building guns, handcrafting guns in Texas. I have a new Jesse James open gun that is not ready for me to be shooting in a full-blown competition.
It's a little slick.
It's a little slick. It needs a little bit of tuning, as guns like that do. But when you find these guys that think they can reinvent the wheel, or they're just really qualified craftsmen like Jesse is, and they're bringing out the new greatest widget or whatever that is, the sport's got nowhere to go but up. I think that we have a lot of years and a lot of growth left in this sport.
That's great to hear, considering that's what I do here is the 3-Gun Show podcast. Well, Tabor, this has been a lot of fun, man. You can leave the audience with one thought or one piece of advice. What would it be?
That's a tough one. One piece of advice. If you're an accomplished shooter, don't be afraid to pass that on. Because our industry is not growing by leaps and bounds. Our industry right now, its largest growth spurt is word of mouth. So that's why I always travel with XYZ guns, extra guns, because if somebody wants to shoot, I'm going to put stuff in their hands so that they can squeeze the trigger and know what it's all about for us. Don't be afraid to pass on the knowledge that you have in our industry. Pass it on. Let's get it going. Let's grow it as big as we can.
Well, I love that, and that really fits into the spirit of this weekend at the WarSport Team Challenge, and then, of course, last week when we were at the Second Amendment Heritage 3-Gun Camp. So Tabor, man, it has been a whirlwind 5 days, hanging out with you, man, and a riot every minute of it. And really enjoyed shooting the match with you. Thanks for being an awesome partner, and thanks for being on the Three Gun Show.
Thank you very much for allowing me to sort of let my hair down, if you will, and shoot with you and come on the Three Gun Show and talk about what I'm so passionate about. Thank you very much.
Absolutely, man. I hope you enjoyed that interview with my teammate, Tabor Bright. Tabor is a cool dude, and we had a great week of shooting at the WarSport Team Challenge, and before that, at the 2A Heritage 3-Gun Junior Camp. Big thanks to Damon Woodall of Tar Heel 3-Gun for inviting us to shoot the match. If you like what you heard about the Junior Camp and you know a young shooter, then there is an opportunity for the second class coming up this summer, July 11th through 13th in Topton, Pennsylvania. These classes are definitely worth traveling for, so be sure to check them out while they still have spots available. I'll have a link to them in the show notes, along with everything else we talked about at 3gunshow.com/episode 80. And don't forget to sign up for the June giveaway of the MGM Target's 10-inch Sportsman's Target. Check it out at 3gunshow.com/MGM. And when you make a purchase at MGM Targets, you can save 10% using the code DHMGM10. You can also support the Three Gun Show podcast by using our affiliate link when you shop at Brownells. Just go to 3gunshow.com/Brownells and shop like normal. We earn a small commission on what you buy at no additional cost to you, and it helps to fund the show. If you like this show, please tell a friend, subscribe in iTunes, and leave a review. In fact, I got a review to read to you here from Pleber456. And Pleber says, a multi-layered audio cake of awesomeness, 5 stars. This show is amazing. Thank you, Dave, for bringing a product like this to the multi-gun fans. You balance relevant issues, humor, and honest interviews perfectly. Keep up the great work. Well, thank you, Pleber. I totally appreciate that. I'm going to keep more coming to you. If you'd like to leave your own review, you can do so by going to 3gunshow.com/iTunes. Thank you so much for downloading, listening, and subscribing to the show. I'm Dave Hartman, and I'll catch you in the next episode.
If you are finished, unload, show clear.